Kash Patel felt it would be simply another standard hearing, but he had no idea Jasmine Crockett was going to transform everything. At first, the air inside room 214 of the Rayburn House office building seemed nearly flat, tranquil. Still another hearing of Oversight Committee. Still under oath, another former official. The typical back and forth. Not out of the usual until Crockett spoke. "Mr. Patel, you need to verify something for me before we proceed any further." Her voice was steady, deliberate, but it cut across the room like a sudden wind in a quiet storm. Not ready for what was next, Patel sat boldly in his blue suit, grinning half-wise. Patel's eyes closed. Then he said, "Congresswoman, I'll answer any questions within the scope." "Oh, don't worry," Crockett said, her cool head unbroken. "This one's well inside the scope." The attitude changed right away. The energy of the room changed, not exactly, but perceptually. A few assistants stopped taking notes. Their whole concentration now was on what was going to happen. Her glasses on her nose, Crockett scanned through her file with exact, deliberate motions. She gripped the papers as though they were weapons, just waiting to be used. "You claimed on record on March 9th that you had no role in organizing intelligence briefings using dubious material." Her words hanging in the air, she queried, "Is that still your testimony?" "Yes," Patel said, his confidence beginning to weaken just a bit, but Crockett neglected it. She turned to show a little, scarcely perceptible smile, knowing one. It was just enough to indicate she had him, not a dramatic or performance moment. She continued, setting the first document on the shared screen. "Well then, you might want to explain this." Date 2 weeks before his testimony, it was an email from Patel's encrypted government account. Briefing notes, top-line talking points. The subject line said, Crockett went over the items aloud. Make sure the phrasing mostly uses uncertainty. Refrain from explicit confirmation of anything. This is more on story direction than on specifics. Patel leaned forward, trying to cool off. "Congresswoman, I would want to view the entire background." "Oh, I'm glad you said that," Crockett cut in. "Because I have the whole thread and the attachment." The conference stopped. Not just Crockett, but Patel as well. His throat became constricted. His blinks started to be more frequent. Now it was obvious that something more was on approach. There was obvious tension in the air. Journalists started moving in their chairs. Some pulled out phones to capture events. Crockett continued without stopping. Her tone unwavering. "This isn't about politics," she said. "It relates to perjury. It's about using government funds to propagate a false narrative under oath, which last time I checked is a federal criminal." The room became alive with buzz. This was a moment, not just another normal hearing now. Reckoning. Furthermore, driving it was Jasmine Crockett. Most people were unaware, though, that Crockett had not been the only one confronting influential persons. Neither would be her last either. She was lugging legal papers around Dallas County courthouses in her flats before standing in the Capitol and lighting up hearings. She earned her way to Congress. It was not premeditated. She was born in Roseland, a southern Dallas area community, but was not nurtured with political aspirations. Dolores, her mother, was a nurse. Her father handled security. Still, they instilled in her a critical thinking attitude, a will not to let anyone talk over her. Jasmine was already wondering why, often making folks uncomfortable with her inquiry by the time she was 11. She never let her curiosity go. She studied in political science at Prairie View A&M, not in politics, but to learn about the system that let individuals just like her fail. After that, law school at Thurgood Marshall School of Law in Houston taught her how to fight systems from the inside, using the same methods sometimes used against people like her. First actual courtroom experience for Jasmine was as a public defender. She represented people facing years in prison for nonviolent offenses, those others did not want to deal with. Her motivation came from a concentrated wrath directed toward a goal, not from glitz or praise. One case, though, turned everything around. Facing up to 20 years for a crime he did not commit, 17-year-old Devin Nunn of videos. Without a witness. Just a nebulous description fit almost half of his neighborhood's population. Jasmine found phone records, receipts, even an attendance record attesting to his presence in class during the claimed crime. She was wasting time, the judge advised her, but Jasmine would not back down. Devin set off on his freedom. 6 months later, the charges were taken off file. That marked the change of direction. Civil rights organizations, activists, and finally political assistants began pouring. Calls. People watched her determination, something the system did not want to witness. She ran for Congress after winning a state seat in Texas and subsequently another. While the accommodations in Washington grew more elegant, the struggle stayed the same. People undervalued her much as they had done in her early years. But Jasmine had discovered the value of being ignored. It allowed her time to get ready and collect her ammo while no one else was around. And exactly that occurred during that hearing for the Oversight Committee. She had everything exactly in place. Got ready. Intentional. And her moment arrived without delay. Patel sat across from her, spewing well-written comments about openness, and Crockett opened her folder gently. She did not show up to perform. She was on there to reveal the truth. Then expose it as she did. She hardly needed to say when she asked Patel once again about his participation. The room hung on her every word as she questioned, yes or no. This was not only a hearing for Patel now. This was a moment people would remember. And Jasmine Crockett had just delivered a blow felt all over the country. Pressing the document button, Jasmine Crockett saw the email flash across the screen. People in the room leaned forward as soon as it showed up, feeling the difference in the air. The vitality was different today. It was no more an ordinary hearing. As they came to see this was not a standard conversation, the anxiety increased still. It was only the beginning, just the tip of the iceberg, even if the email was cutting. Jasmine would whip out something that would cause the whole committee to sit up straight and become very alert. The room became quiet. Nobody stirred, none even clicked their phones or rustled a paper, as if the very air were holding its breath. The paper that showed up was a scanned PDF with low resolution, but still legible, just the sort of thing that shouldn't be public viewable. It was the kind of paper that only shows up following weeks of searching through long-forgotten files, deleted emails, and metadata. Looking up from the page, Crockett deliberately tapped her finger on it. She remarked, her cool voice slicing through the stress, "This email was sent from your official government account to Thomas Behrens, a private consultant well known for working on campaign strategy. Sent on February 21st, 18 days before your sworn testimony, it arrived at 3:12 p.m. It mentions particular wording to be used in forthcoming intelligence briefings." Patel slanted slightly in his chair, his assured manner beginning to break. Still, he did not get terrified. His lawyer leaned in and whispered rapidly to him, but Patel did not answer right away. Rather, he slanted back and said, "Congresswoman, I'm not denying that I spoke with Mr. Behrens, but this email has been taken completely out of context." Crockett did not waver. She lifted a hand to indicate she was not yet finished. "We will get to context in a moment," she said, turning the page. Let's review the second message in that thread sent this morning at 8:06 a.m. The next message exposed even more shocking material. Want to ensure the analyst follows the script exactly. I have noted the elements that might cause concern. Let us remain evasive till after the hearings. A roomful of people gasped aloud. Crockett said, her voice firm, and that analyst, Mr. Patel, was scheduled to brief this very committee 2 days later, correct? Patel slowed down, obviously thrown off. That's not my recollection, he said, faltering. But Crockett was not about to let him go unpackled. She held up a copy of the staff calendar invite and asked, "Would you want a copy of this?" "Since I have it right here." She did not bide her time for his reaction. She understood at that instant he wouldn't be able to negotiate his way out of it, not cleanly. Patel turned back to his attorney, who once more murmured rapidly, this time with a hand gesture asking him to slow down. Crockett, meanwhile, was not slowing down. Not right now. "This is the thing, Mr. Patel," she continued. "You could be claiming you forgot. Someone else handled it. You can claim that. but the emails belong to you. The timestamps come through clearly. The receivers are actual people. And with reference to the instructions? You said those. Patel started to answer, but Crockett cut him off. Don't answer yet. We still have to work on. She turned the page once more and exposed another more proof. I have phone records for the 20th and the 21st. Between your office and Mr. Barron's, they show back-to-back calls 8 minutes, then 11, then another one right before midnight. All within a 24-hour period of this email series. Patel gave no response right away. He just fixed his eyes straight ahead, jaw hard. The sure smile that had been there earlier vanished abruptly. Crockett slanted forward slightly and spoke deliberately, pointing. You maintain there is no intention to influence. These briefings, no coordination. Still, we have call logs, directions, and a witness who has previously spoken with off-record staff investigators. Patel sat back and was silent. He appeared demoralized for a time. Crockett gave a subdued smile, but it was one of knowledge rather than triumph. Don't fret over that. You will learn when the subpoena releases start. Once more, the silence in the room became weighty, but this time it was not only about the email, it was about the way everything fit so precisely. Crockett presented only hard facts and indisputable truth, and his reading of each line exuded confidence. There was just the facts, no guesswork or bludging. Chairman Lytle bent into his mic. Congresswoman, should you have more material? The committee would... Crockett stopped here to let the witness answer, her eyes still fixed on Patel. Patel inhaled gently, his words suddenly faltering. His former confidence destroyed. He said, I'm not aware of any wrongdoing. I certainly didn't lie under oath, and I never advised anyone to falsify intelligence reports. Crockett answered with a stern, Are you sure about that? He locked eyes with hers. Am I? She pushed, moving in even closer. Then you're saying these emails are fake? Patel said fast, trying to control, I'm saying they're being misrepresented. Crockett laughed gently, her voice cutting but light. You are welcome to send a forensic report attesting to that. A shiver of doubt passed over Patel's face for the first time in the hearing, but Crockett refused to live with flimsy uncertainty. She was ready to unleash the bombshell that would cause public mistrust to grow fully active. She let the stillness hang in the air for a time, then let it weigh down. Then she silently slid the last sheet from her folder under the document camera. On the screen, the last paper showed. First impression was that it was straightforward, just another email forward. But the topic line attracted notice right away. Re-briefing corrections, R. Wilkes, C. Stein, W.H. approval, from Kash Patel to T. Barron's. Date, February 24th at 6:41 p.m. Additionally, the material is all good. The language was free of flaws. Green sign. Keep to the phrase covered last week. Keep your deviations minimal. The POTUS office will be briefed first tomorrow morning. The chamber froze. Reading the last paragraph, POTUS office will be briefed tomorrow morning. Crockett leaned into the microphone and said deliberately, That's intriguing since committee records show that the subject of that particular briefing wasn't categorized as an executive-level concern. It was not planned to climb to that level. She looked about the room and then pointedly fixated Patel. So help me understand, Mr. Patel, why was the White House being notified about language in a briefing that was, by your own testimonial, routine and apolitical? Patel looked down, but there was no reply. Crockett arrived late. Before it got to our committee, was this briefing changed to suit a political message? Patel got back on his feet. I must review the whole background of that email. You authored it, Crockett answered coolly. Trying to absolve the culpability elsewhere, Patel stated, I don't recall that particular thread. It comes from your account, Crockett reminded him. 3 different analysts have confirmed it. The digital signature validates the server log. I mentioned I came ready for this. There was a whisper across the space. Leaning toward another, one of the dais assistants murmured, That's a kill shot. Crockett composed himself. You have maintained that you behaved in line with your capacity and without any intention of misleading. Still, this message implies cooperation between political agents and White House officials on wording that was finally claimed to be intelligence. Patel folded his hands, then opened them. You are assuming something, he remarked. No, Crockett answered with unflinching voice. I am quoting your words here. Clearing his throat across the room, a Republican committee member sought to stop the flow, but Crockett did not blink. She said, Do you deny writing this email? Patel stopped and said, I don't remember writing it. Convenient, Crockett remarked, her tone exact. She went to face the chair. Mr. Chairman, I would like this email entered into official record. So entered, Chairman Liddell answered, tapping his mic, and I would want the committee to formally ask that Mr. Patel review his earlier sworn statements in view of this fresh material. Crockett nodded. I will send that in writing. The moment seemed to be historic. There is not grandstanding or spectacular outbursts. Armed with a paper trail no one saw, one lawmaker gently destroyed a man who had run influential circles for years. Reporters already tweeting the contents of the email were outside the premises. Breaking news visuals were under preparation by news sources. The email permeated everything, and on the phone. Humming silently in Patel's pocket, the crisis thread of his team was flickering on. Crockett slanted back slightly, her work done, for now. But the true harm is here. It was only just getting started. Whispers and murmurs filled the hearing room as Mr. Patel's defense took shape. Mr. Patel was in contact with several officials during that time. Coordination does not imply misconduct, one of his legal counsel said. Crockett remained silent, but her pen moved quickly as she noted something. Then fresh Republican from Arizona Representative Kendra Malloy came out. She was not known for challenging authority, yet her voice broke through the suspense. Although I disagree with my colleague on many points of view, I think this committee owes it to the public to carefully review this material. The room went still. Although Malloy's reply was gentle, its weight was not lost on anyone. It indicated that this was not going to fade silently. Patel stayed still, his face invisible. Nevertheless, this time his lawyer moved closer and murmured more strongly. Patel nodded silently, but something had evolved. The dynamic in the room had changed. Then arrived yet another turn. Former Ohio prosecutor Jonah Lyles made a very important argument. He cited Patel's earlier testimony from a different committee hearing 6 months prior, in which Patel had asserted he had no direct interaction with White House briefers during his post-administration activities. Lyles showed how the printout of that testimony now seemed to contradict the language in the February 24th email. Lyles pushed, so I'll ask you again, did you or did you not coordinate with anyone connected to the executive office in 2023? Patel looked more defensively and breathed forcefully. I would have to go over all of the correspondence before responding definitively, he said. Younger interns in the back row of the gallery mumbled among themselves. One of them even spoke. He's cooked. She bit. Crockett said nothing and showed no great gestures. Her attitude was not triumphant, only calm concentration. She was thinking about the repercussions. She was not playing to the moment. Crockett walked silently back to her office after lunch broke the hearing. Alicia trailed along, lugging the now somewhat damaged folder of records. As they passed, reporters cried out demanding, Congresswoman Crockett, any comment? Do you think Patel wounded himself today? Does the DOJ have this under investigation? Jasmine said nothing, though. She continued to stroll, allowing the inquiries to pass. The weight of what had just happened started to seep in when she walked into her workplace. Alicia leaned back against the door she closed behind them. You know what you just did, right? She said, her voice slightly amazed. You might have started a full inquiry. Breathing, Jasmine sat on the edge of her desk. That wasn't the aim, she added gently. Still, if it occurs, it happens. Alicia hesitated, then asked, You think they'll come after you for this? Jasmine raised her weary but determined glance. They already are. Patel's legal team gathered in the corridor, debating how best to react back in the hearing room. There was discussion about providing a clarification, maybe a press release, or perhaps a closed-door follow-up to define the email's terminology, but none of it felt strong enough today. The narrative had left the hall already. This is the kind of thing prosecutors pay attention to, especially if it involves prior sworn statements and documented contradictions, one legal correspondent on a streaming network said succinctly. The quantity of press briefings Patel's staff produced no bearing on anything. The story has already changed, and it was not reversing. But Crockett had to deal with something nobody ever educates you for, the aftermath, before she could think about what lay ahead. What follows the fading in the focus? Jasmine did not celebrate after the hearing called for the day ended. She neither stayed in the corridor for the press throng or tweeted a triumph. Rather, she went down 2 stories on the stairs from the rear corridor, entered the members' lounge to relax. Calls, texts, and group discussions kept her phone humming incessantly. 2 minutes later, Alicia arrived carrying her own phone as though it were a live grenade. Her voice full of incredulity, she remarked, "You're trending in 4 different categories." MSNBC already asked to have a sit-down. CNN needs a reply. Even asked about long form, even 60 minutes. And you will not believe this. Don Lemon just DM'd you. Rubbing her eyes, Jasmine murmured, "I don't care about Don Lemon." She dropped her head toward her phone. Her email count doubled as well. One message caught my attention. The subject line said, "Need to discuss urgent." It came from a former intelligence agent she hadn't spoken to in years, the kind of person who never emailed unless something was burning. Still, that would wait. She had to stay on target right now. She briefly accessed Twitter and saw thousands of retweets, most highlighting her comment from the hearing. Facts don't disappear just because you ignore them. Already, people all around were printing it on t-shirts. Commentary on one-screen illuminated living rooms, while in a Detroit barbershop, a group of elderly men were riveted to the afternoon summary. Retired teacher among them added, "She didn't blink. That girl is fire." One of the young women observing a video of her grilling Patel in Oakland said, "She's like Thurgood Marshall in heels." She is from Oakland. The space erupted in laughter. Not everyone, though, was chuckling. 2 hours later, Patel's team sent out a well-crafted statement from D.C. The site had selectively supplied information and charged some members of weaponizing bureaucracy for political benefit. It didn't dispute the emails. It didn't name Jasmine either, but it wasn't required. One done damage. Jasmine stayed at her workplace until almost 10 o'clock that evening, 1 floor at a time. The construction emptied all around her. Bypassing security personnel nodded silently in modest respect. Alicia came back with dinner, cold rice and lemon pepper chicken. She murmured gently, seated across from her, "They're going for you tomorrow." "I know," Jasmine responded in a firm voice. "Let them, please." Her phone buzzed once more at that. This time, media was not the factor involved. It came from her mother. Her mother's voice was subdued, as though she were still getting used to hearing her daughter on national news. "Hey, baby," she said. "You fine?" "I'm good," Jasmine said. "You performed well today." "You know that?" her mother questioned. Jasmine hesitated, not feeling the weight of the compliments. "Not quite. It felt bad." "I understand," she said. But truth doesn't feel pleasant occasionally. Simply said, it has to be told. That made difference. Jasmine let out a hard swallow. "They will try to turn this around on me." Her mother stopped and answered, "That man didn't look so sure of himself when you were done with him." And others witnessed it, including the ones that despise you. For a few brief seconds, neither of them spoke. Her mother then said, "You didn't raise your voice. You didn't become emotional. You simply handed them the facts." That meant something more than the hashtags and then the press covers. Jasmine sat in silence following the conversation, the kind of silence that hums in your chest following a protracted argument. Not respite, only stillness. Pundits across town discussed future directions. Some claimed she overreached, while others claimed she revealed a hitherto unthinkable flaw in Patel's armor. A few discreetly acknowledged that, particularly if the DOJ were to pick it up, this could turn into something more serious. Crockett, meanwhile, showed little enthusiasm for guessing games. She arrived in D.C. not to play chess with egos. She came to tell the truth, even when it made rivals unhappy. Nobody tells you, though, what it feels like to land the blow and then have to go alone after. Jasmine Crockett arrived at her office early the next morning, right around 6:30 a.m. Though the sun had not quite risen above Washington, the city was already humming with expectation. There were news vehicles parked outside the Capitol, and a camera team positioned close to the front door. She stayed calm. She could smell yesterday's coffee and reheated food right inside her office. Alicia had fallen asleep on the couch, her laptop open to notes on Patel's previous testimony. Jasmine did not wake her. She opened her email, sat at her desk, and went through hundreds of media inquiries along with a few colleague congrats notes. But down farther, worse notes awaited her. Warnings from unknown sources, some far more intimate. One particularly noteworthy, tagged as urgent, mail had a subject line: "You embarrassed the incorrect people. Take caution." Twice, Jasmine read the anonymous letter, then erased it without answering. Her phone went off once more at 8 a.m. It was Capitol Police. "Just for precaution," the officer continued, "we would like to improve patrol presence around your office. Though we have more discussion now, no confirmed threats yet." Jasmine mumbled, "Let them patrol. I'm not hiding behind anything here." On the couch, Alicia moved and blinked into the light. She questioned, "Was that security?" "Sure," Jasmine said. "They're giving it great thought." Though the human weight of it escaped her, Jasmine answered, "They are, but so am I." The exhilaration from the hearing had subsided, and now the frigid part, that in which the people she had challenged would not clap back on camera. They would discreetly and deliberately do it behind closed doors. Alicia massaged her face and sat up. "I have given this some thought. Should Patel's folks try to spin this hard enough, they might visit your bar license." Jasmine hardly looked up at all. "Let them try." Her voice was serene, but it carried steel. "But if they visit there," she went slowly. She really meant it. Most people were unaware of the fact Jasmine had experienced this kind of strain earlier. She had gotten calls as a public defender in Texas after revealing police officer misbehavior. After a not guilty finding, one client's family house had been spray painted. She never followed orders to stay in her lane. She had been yelled down in courtrooms. The stakes were now merely higher, and the shadows stretched farther. Still, there were also faint indications of light. That afternoon, she received an envelope at her workplace. Simply a handwritten envelope inside, no return address. She opened it to discover lined notebook paper, folded letters. She was 14 years old from Newark, New Jersey. "I saw you on TV," the young writer said. "You inspired a legal career in me. I had no idea we could converse in such manner with influential people. Jasmine brought the letter to life for us." She grinned. She pointed out, "That's the part they can't take." Jasmine put the message inside her briefcase. "I fight for that aspect most of all. Not the flashy ones, but rather the one with long-form format and actual questions." Jasmine sat down for a one-on-one interview on a less-known political news source later that evening. "Do you worry about the repercussions of calling someone like Patel out in public?" the host questioned. Jasmine aimed directly at the camera. She answered coolly, "I worry about what happens if people like me don't." The host stopped. "Do you think this will change anything?" Jasmine said, "Maybe. Perhaps not. Still, occasionally you sow a seed knowing you won't be sitting under the tree." Viewers were sending notes of support before the end of the interview. Retired judges, law students, civil workers, even a former Capitol employee who now worked in New Mexico wrote in saying, "You reminded me why I used to care about this place." Behind every pleasant communication, though, was a darker shadow, people planning their next steps and safeguarding old networks, waiting for her to trip. Jasmine Crockett was not in this, though, to survive politics. Though it rocked her back, she was in it to shake it. Friday morning, it was not only opinions shared by analysts. Two former Department of Justice officials who had once served under the Office of the Inspector General now possessed the email. Now working for a national paper as a legal expert, one of them penned a story called The Crockett File could trigger a real investigation. Since the hearing, Kash Patel had not shown himself in public. Two arranged interviews were canceled by his staff. His legal counsel issued another nebulous comment on timing and context, but it made no difference. The internet had already split the story. Law scholars, reporters, and board Reddit users with too much time were analyzing every inconsistency, every well-selected term. The actual pressure was mounting in a quiet area of Bethesda, Maryland now. Already, a federal prosecutor asked to have a preliminary assessment of Patel's sworn testimony reopened. It was a step far from an indictment, but it began with Jasmine Crockett's folder. Oversight committee members were having unofficial conversations over in the Capitol. Even a handful who had been silent during the hearing were considering their alternatives now. A few murmurs about getting Patel a subpoena for a closed-door session surfaced. Others want to bring in Barron's. The email mentioned campaign consultant. Declaring it a partisan stunt, Patel's supporters on the committee sought to minimize it all. Among the employees, though, a few were discreetly saying, "This doesn't look good." Outside Patel's Fairfax house, reporters set up camp waiting for any hint that he would talk. One day, two later. Patel coming out of a restaurant with his attorney, avoiding photographers, his face hard, no statement, no eye contact. Just a guy suddenly aware that the walls were thinner than he imagined surfaced on Sunday in a hazy cell phone video. She was meeting legal advisors and committee staff back in Crockett's office. Now the tone was somber, no high fives or headlines. "Do you think the DOJ will act?" one assistant said. She gave her head a shake. "Not unless we maintain the pressure high." "But is that your goal?" Another helper questioned. She answered sharply, "My goal is the truth. Whatever comes from that comes." Later in that afternoon, Alicia entered carrying a manila envelope. "This came straight from Judiciary," she stated. Opening it, Jasmine turned over the top page. Her eyes darkened. "They're like a copy of the email thread." Pausing, Alicia asked, "Judiciary?" Indeed, more committees were slowly, silently participating, but they were observing. Patel's legal team had recruited a crisis communications firm, former employees, digital scrubbers. One of them even employed in media cleanup for well-known clients ensnared in federal investigations. This was the kind of action you take when you realize this is beyond politics today. Crockett, though, paid little attention to that. That weekend, she went over more files, phone records, committee notes, and cross-referencing schedules. She was aware of what others lacked. Patel's email was not a single error. It followed a pattern, one that had to be mapped piecemeal. Then late on Sunday night, she received an unidentified note on her encrypted email. It said, "You are not mistaken. One more is look at August 12th. Search internal calendar records linked to OMB and DNI. Start with messaging alignment, a term. No name. Not track any IP. Just a suggestion, but a strong one." Jasmine marked it for the legal guidance of her staff. By Monday, Judiciary had formally asked for more paperwork. Patel's lawyers sent a third statement more defensively this time. They blamed political-driven theater, selective disclosures, and careless use of committee funds. Crockett, however, did not respond publicly. She did not need to. Already the narrative was breathing on its own. This isn't just about one email, a national journalist finished their segment that evening. It is about responsibility. And whether a congressperson armed just with paper and a microphone can still have influence in 2025. Jasmine was already getting ready for the following phase while Patel sought to stop the harm, because the truth moves forward without waiting for permission. The email had stirred something deeper, not only in Washington but all around, by the time the dust fell than merely headlines. Jasmine Crockett produced not dazzling work. She spoke softly instead of screaming. She refrained from insulting. She performed for the camera, not for this. She simply connected the connections, presented the receipts, and let everyone see the truth sitting there. That kind of silence hits different in a political age full of shouting. 2 weeks later, Patel still hadn't gone back to the Hill. The Oversight Committee had stopped future testimony until more study. Judicial had quietly arranged 3 people connected to the February email for internal questioning. One had already started to lawyer. Jasmine continued on, attending constituent meetings, a community roundtable in Tulsa, hearing, "Red carpets are not used here. Not any press trips." She understood the emphasis would change, as always. Still, that was irrelevant since the individuals who really mattered were still observing. A middle school civics teacher in Gary, Indiana, planned a whole week's instruction based on the hearing. Her pupils dissected the questions, followed the reasoning, and asked one another how they would have answered. She didn't act like a politician, one youngster stated. She behaved as though she simply sought the truth. Retired Judge Jasmine Crockett reminded the audience in Los Angeles that government oversight is about proof rather than party. And within D.C., the tone changed. Sudden, but most definitely. Staff members of the committee spoke more deliberately. Selected members arrived for hearings with thicker folders. Some even instructed their assistants to personally verify their own records, just in case. What Crockett had done cannot be undone, not even if no charges came, or if Patel managed to manipulate the story over time. She reminded the nation that even the most well-protected leaders might be openly questioned on record, face to face, and that power is not meant to run unbridled. But what stayed with Jasmine the most was not from a network or a newspaper, but from an 11-year-old child who approached her following a local address at a Kansas City community center. "My grandma said you made liars nervous," the girl remarked. As Jasmine grinned, she asked, "What do you think I did?" The girl sighed. "You didn't let him wiggle out and ask the right questions. Straightforward, honest, and exactly on. This was always about not points scored on social media, not punishment for its own reason. Just a truth lying beneath fancy suits and legalese, waiting to be brought into view. Crockett needed not to be a hero. She showed no desire in saving anyone. She possessed, however, something many in positions of authority overlooked: receipts, resolution, and a spine. And occasionally, it alone is sufficient to bring about a change. Therefore, if there is a lesson here, it is not only for those under oath, but also for those observing from the sidelines, wondering if the system is too far gone. Not. For the system is only as flawed as the quiet around it. The second someone actually speaks, it can begin to move once more. One folder at first, then another. One query at once. One email at a time. Recall, if you are still seeing this, the truth speaks not for itself. It calls for those not scared to defend it. Count among them one of them. And subscribe to the channel if you believe facts over noise and bravery above comfort. We have more narratives worth sharing.